to the Protection Defense Magic class presented by Witch With Me. I am Julia. I'm going to be your instructor for the course. I have been practicing witchcraft for more years than I can remember, to be honest. At least 15, somewhere between 15 and 20. It's not, I honestly don't think I've really counted because I did also move away from witchcraft for a certain point in my life. I traveled quite a lot, and to be honest, sometimes I feel like I've heard that so much recently, we kind of move away from the craft and then we come back. But I started practicing when I was a teenager. I actually started in Wicca. I then moved on to ceremonial magic, so I have a bit of background there. And I then became really eclectic, and so just sort of been learning all sorts of different traditions since then. So this course will be a little bit of a reflection of that. It will be highly eclectic. I'm going to, teach you things that are hoodoo, and maybe even some things that are a little bit of ceremonial magic flair in it, just a little bit, and also, maybe traditional witchcraft, traditional European witchcraft. And certainly it'll be a blend of different practices as well, very similar to what I practice. So hopefully you will enjoy that. The other thing is that what I expect you to learn from this course is basically by the end of this course, I expect you to be able to protect yourself and have different techniques that you can pull from. I do not expect you to do everything I teach. In fact, it would take a lot of time if you do everything. I also expect you to make things your own, because if something I say does not resonate, you can still glean something from it, make it your own, change it up a little bit. So definitely, I always urge you to make things your own as much as possible. And this is why all of when the spells I'm going to give you, they're not going to be lengthy. They're going to be short, quick, and they're meant to be illustrative only. I want you to write your own spell language, because I can give you the words, but as an example, I love rhymey things. If you hate rhymes, you're going to be grating your teeth every single time I give you a spell because you're going to hate the rhyming. So change up the words, So definitely that is one of the outcomes that I would love for you to achieve by the end of this course, is know how to protect yourself, but also get more comfortable practicing magic of your own while drawing on other sources. And create your own rituals, for sure, that maybe are similar but a little bit different, that are more familiar to you. So that is the kind of what the expectation is for you to accomplish by the end of this course. In terms of what you're going to learn, so we are going to start very, very basic. We're going to start with the foundations, some exercises, and certain things that are going to help you in magic in general. So this is even outside of protection magic. We're even going to get into thinking about what is magic. So, and a little bit more on that later. We're also going to learn how to protect your home, the inside and out, or maybe your room if you don't have a home. I'm going to try and give you some modifications if you're, for example, an apartment dweller, or if you're in the broom closet. I will try to respect different paths that we're coming from as much as I can. So definitely we'll learn how to protect your house, your sacred space, where you do your magic. You'll also learn how to protect yourself personally, how to protect yourself in your workspace if you're working, how to protect yourself if you're traveling somewhere, so basically protection on the go, as I like to say it. And we're also going to learn how to do defensive magic when things go wrong, which I hope they never ever do for you. It is rare, don't be panicked, but if something does go wrong, you need to know how to protect yourself magically as well. So we'll learn that, and we'll learn a couple of other things. So definitely it will be a very filled course. There are PDFs associated with most lectures. Sometimes I make group PDFs, the accompanying materials, because it just makes sense. So you may sometimes not have a PDF, but maybe on the next lesson there will be, but I think I actually have them for every module. And I try to break up the modules where possible. Some of them are going to be close or right around the hour mark. So, just make sure you get comfortable and you have enough time. You always feel free to pause it and come back to it if it's too long, rewatch something. So hopefully you take advantage of just being able to come back and look at the material again. So that is a little bit about our class. The other thing I wanted to mention, this is a bit of a funny story, just kind of a really quick one. At least it was funny to me, but when I was thinking about the name for the course, I got really stuck on the name. I was like, oh, what am I going to call this course? Eventually it was just, I was like, I'm going to call it what it is, Protection, Defense, Magic. But my very first thought, and I'm not kidding you, it was Defense Against the Dark Arts. And I was like, oh, that's so oh yeah, no, that is Harry Potter. Yeah, no, I will get so sued if I call it that. So anyway, but it's just funny because I wasn't even thinking of Harry Potter, and then of course it's also not accurate because this is not, we're not learning how to protect yourself against the dark arts. There's no such thing technically, and so anyway, so it wouldn't even been an accurate name, but it just made me laugh. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And anyway, so that was my very first name. So this is the Protection, Defense, Magic course because I don't want to be sued by a legion of Harry Potter lawyers. Now, for some of you are thinking, oh no, this class is going to have Harry Potter. I want my money back. I promise there are no more Harry Potter references after this. Now, the other half of you are saying, I wanted more Harry Potter references. I want my money back, and that just goes to show you can't please everyone by anything that you do. I will do my best though. So what we are going to, a couple of housekeeping rules in addition to what we're going to learn. So just very, very quick housekeeping rules. We're going to talk about, in a later module, we're going to get into how magic works a little bit. And the reason for that is we, as modern witches, we live in a very accessible world. And by accessibility here, I mean access to resources. So we're able to access books and online resources. We maybe have witchy friends now, other practitioners. So there's a lot of information coming at us. And as a beginner witch, oftentimes you might pick up spell books that just go right into spells. So you may have learned candle magic, color magic, maybe even sigils. You may have learned all these things, but you've never really done foundational work. And to an extent, foundational work doesn't exist as much in witchcraft as it does in maybe, say, ceremonial magic or other types of traditions. And it's, to me, that's incredible because it's like you sometimes learn so many spells before you ever really think about protection, or how to protect yourself, or even why you need to protect yourself. So that's something we're going to talk about as part of this course, is why you need to protect yourself, why it's so important, because it truly is foundational. Even when you think about any sort of fantasy books, anything that has magic in it, so any sort of, like wizards in books, they always learn basics at the academy, and often it is how to protect themselves against the dark arts. But there's a reason for that. It is because that protection, how to defend ourselves, how to set up protection so we don't have to do counter defense, that is, it's the most basic of all magics. Is you need to know how to keep yourself, how to keep yourself from harm. And so I'm sometimes amazed at all of the information we can access, and yet none of it ever mentions how to protect yourself, or very rarely. It does sometimes to give good credit where it's due, but still, and nowhere do people talk about how magic works. Like, it is also rare. No one ever says, okay, well, fine, how do you manifest? How does the process work? Is it energy? Where does it come from? None of that ever is talked about, and I think partially is because we all have very different views on magic, on the divine, so we have such radically, sometimes maybe we have some commonality, but we have our own version of how things work, but we don't think about that a lot of times in witchcraft. So I urge you to take a step back and really do foundational exploration of what magic is to you. Like, what is magic to you? I will give you maybe a model that is, that it actually comes from more ceremonial magic, but it's just a model. It's not intended, I'm not trying to sell you on it. It's just intended to give you an idea of how to think about it, how to approach it, and maybe think about your own style of things. So definitely that's something that is huge for me, is protection. When I think I actually started my own path, and that was the first thing on my mind was how to protect myself, because I knew that with any magic that you do, there are inherent risks. Sometimes magic doesn't work the way you intended. At best, nothing happens, but at worst, you could cross yourself. You could block yourself. There are certain things that you can get drained. There are lots of things that can happen even within your own magic, no matter how simple or how complex it is. And by that I mean how many steps or how few steps you've taken to perform a spell, for example. So certainly, so definitely think about that, and I'm going to challenge you to do that. The other thing I would love for you to think about is correspondences. I am going to give you on one of the PDFs that will accompany this course, there will be some correspondences for protection, for cleansing, and later on even for reversals. However, I want to be very clear that you can consult five different correspondences list of correspondences, and they may all conflict each other. They may say slightly different things. There is not really a one correspondence to rule them all. They are going to be different, and again, this is where I urge you to substitute what is protective to you. To me, rosemary is highly protective. To you, it may not be. Maybe it is sage. Maybe sage is the most protective thing. So then in recipes where maybe I give rosemary, you would substitute sage. Hopefully that gives you again a little bit of an idea, but I want you to really explore correspondences. I also really want you, outside of even our course, I also want you to try and come up with, again, I want you to research, and each, for example, plant that you're going to be working with, like rosemary, sage, research its history. You don't have to get a book, just go online, Google it, Google history of rosemary, and even look up, or maybe rosemary lore, and just kind of look it up and see why rosemary is protective, because rosemary has so many other associations. Obviously it's for memory. In ancient Greece, scholars used to stick it in their hair when they were studying or just learning. So it has so many other uses, magical properties as well. So definitely get to know your plants, get to know your crystals, get to know your natural objects, like different bone, different horns, whatever it is that you work with, seeds, all that stuff. But get to know it really well before you use it, and just take it one step at a time. You don't have to read up on every single thing, but if you're going to be using these 3 ingredients, learn as much as you can about those 3 ingredients at that time, right? And then just commit that to memory, put that into your grimoire book of shadows. Which brings me to my next point, and that is you should be keeping a journal of all of your protection spells and rituals and everything you do. It can be part of your book of shadows. I prefer to have mine separate, so I keep a journal of all magical workings, and then I actually have more of a grimoire. Maybe my journal is more like my book of shadows, and my grimoire is more, these are the spells that I do. Just very quickly, if you're not familiar, grimoire is basically it's something that is a collection of, it's a textbook of spells and rituals and recipes. It is something though that has less personal stuff in it, whereas the Book of Shadows, it comes from Wicca, the term comes from Wicca, but the Book of Shadows actually contains more personalized rituals, or it's not meant to be seen by the public eye, whereas a grimoire, you can share it with your friends, it doesn't matter. Book of Shadows is something you keep more closely guarded. It's more like a secret recipe, if you will. I'm not doing that explanation justice, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, but in a nutshell, that's the difference. And a lot of magicians also have a journal in addition to a Book of Shadows, where they keep maybe the daily rituals. And this can be quick. It's a little bit easier because your Book of Shadows, often you want it to look nice, or your grimoire, you want it to, you spend a lot of time on it. Your journal should be really quick, and you can cross things out without thinking like, oh, I'm going to ruin my pretty Book of Shadows. That type of thing. So definitely don't worry about that. So that's why I keep mine separate in a journal, but you should do the same for all of your protection spells. Everything that we're going to learn here, you should start to track. The reason that you're tracking things in a journal, if you've never done it before, is you want to start to get patterns from spells you repeat, especially. And even if you do them once, you want to record things like the timing of the moon, the day of the week, the hour, the planetary hour. You want to maybe record, of course, what spell you did, why you did it, your emotional state, your physical state, and then how you felt during the spell, what was the spell, and then how you felt after, and if it was successful or not. So there are a lot of things that you can go back and write. You don't have to do all of those, but those are just some ideas to get you started. And definitely be keeping some sort of journal for the spells that we're going to learn here. And then, as I mentioned, there are going to be accompanying materials, PDFs, so where I'm giving you a spell in the video or some sort of a recipe, there will be the same on the PDF, so you don't have to be writing things down. However, I do strongly urge you to take notes, even though I am putting all this stuff on the PDF, because I will say things that will not be on the PDF. Just so you know, it will be lecture style where I will be telling you more things. And then a PDF, I'll just give you a quick kind of a recap, so it will be condensed. So definitely, the other reason it's great to take some notes, you don't have to write everything down, of course, please don't do that. But it's great to take some notes, maybe just key points that resonated with you, whatever it is, because that is how you're going to commit them to memory, right? The act of writing is going to help you remember things. So that's actually why I encourage notes. Again, don't take everything. This is not university, you're not getting graded. And finally, as I mentioned, this is another final point, is I want you to pick and choose. You don't have to do everything. Pick and choose what resonates with you. Make it your own always, even with correspondences, and just have so much fun with it. So because I think part of why we do magic is because it's fun, it's exciting, it connects us with something beyond, something that is something else, and however that is to you. I don't want to define it in a wrong way that maybe won't resonate with you, but I think that's why we practice magic. It is something beautiful and amazing and fun. I think magic is super fun. So definitely have fun with this course. And one tiny quick note, I should have said this earlier, but for correspondences, again, there's not really any one book, but Scott Cunningham's for sure. His book of correspondences for herbals, so anyway, so he has different books, he has quite a few books, but I would really urge you to maybe get that. You can certainly get a used copy, you can borrow it from the library, and then just sort of write the most important ones down. But again, I strongly urge you to get that book if you can, because that will really help you figure out some additional resources. I'm going to try and give you some, but I'm certainly not going to give you a whole book of resources on correspondences. So definitely you may want to do more research and check out especially for herbalism, because there's so many herbs and plants and plant allies, and you want to probably have a good resource on that. So if you don't already have that, I would recommend getting that as the book. So that's it for me. And in our very first module, in our next module, the very first one of this course, we are going to learn again some foundational things. So a couple of exercises, some that you maybe can do more frequently, one that you can do daily, and certainly others that are less regular, but they're all highly protective things, and very basic and very simple. So they're going to really give you a good foundation of protection magic. See you soon.